Mr. Bill Gollan, formerly from Bill Gollan's car yard, mate. Are we here to talk about buying a car these days, or?
Oh, Nick, those days are long gone. I mean, well, I still every now and then it's like a reflex action, and it just comes back in. Someone's talking. Can't help yourself. Every now someone talks about a car.
Well, mate, your background, it was a family company, wasn't it? Your dad's company that you
Mate,
took over?
we were actually Queensland's oldest motor dealership.
Oh, wow.
We're the longest continuous motor dealership in Queensland, 55 years at the one spot. And my dad started it off literally the year I was born, back in 1963. So I'm going to show my age now. That's pretty scary.
Mate, you're a young pup. It's all good.
Oh, mate, and still handsome. Yeah, you've got
exactly.
you've got that side of it. So yeah, look, back in there, and my dad and my grandfather was originally in the area as a racehorse trainer in Scott Street and at Deagon.
Yep.
And I quite often say that my dad grew up in the stables, born in the stables at Deagon. Yeah, so.
One of the cool things living at Deagon, I'd come home late from gigs and everything. You'd see the horses going down to do their warm-ups and everything, and then you'd hear them going down the streets with their clicking on the streets. It was a really cool vibe.
It's a great vibe. And look, there's stories of when my dad grew up. He had a pet chicken, and one day the pet chicken didn't show up, and the next night the pet chicken was for dinner. Well, it wasn't the pet chicken. That's what my grandmother and grandfather said. But for the rest of his life, my father never ate chickens. Quite funny. In Scott Street, they're like the stable. They aren't there anymore. There are a lot of stables still in Deagon, so there's a really good affinity there. And my father had my grandfather, had a really cool record that he never coached or trained a racehorse that never won a race.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. Mate, it's funny growing up in the 70s, back in the 70s, car salesmen were like, that was, you talk about car salesmen, that was like the dodgy guy you'd pick on. And then got to the point where it all became about lawyers, and suddenly car salesmen were really cool, and you actually trusted the car salesman because you needed...
And politicians.
Well, first it was lawyers. They were first. Then the politicians came along and just kind of took the whole slate away from everybody. And these days, after the last few years, kind of some doctors get thrown in there too, mate. Are they dodgy salesmen, or are they actually going to cure me?
I'm not bagging our doctors, mate, because there's no way. One day I might be in front of one. It's the same. Doctors are great people, right?
I'm not bagging them either, but I'm saying we do see these days that in corporate world, a lot of these people up front become salespeople and dodgy salespeople. And there's so many layers now between the car salesmen. The car salesmen are put on a pretty high pedestal, mate. So I think it was a really interesting journey seeing that all go through growing up.
Look, Nick, without sort of like gilding and spending too much time on this particular issue, we ran the business. My father started before me for 55 years. And in the 55 years, we obviously had issues with people, but we really prided ourselves on the way we looked after people. And we literally, even before I left and had to get out of the business for health reasons, we were literally at that stage selling cars to local people, nearly third and sometimes the fourth generation.
Yep. And that's why I wanted to start with that comment, because we're going to talk tonight a bit about Chamber of Commerce, what you do in that, and what's happening in the Sandgate area, which I love. But the point is, you come at that from someone who's been ingrained in the community for so long through generations. And I think that's an important part to start with, mate. It's people look at people who are in these certain positions like Chamber of Commerce and think are they there for various other reasons to make noise. But you actually grew out of the community into that position. So, mate, what does it mean now where you stepped in for a long time now, and we're good mates, so I'm putting that out there, that I see the work you do around the place and I really expect what you do.
Thank you.
But you walked into a role of Chamber of Commerce. So what does that mean to be the president of Chamber of Commerce, and what does Chamber of Commerce do, and how does that carry into your love of the local community?
So without going back too far in the piece, the Chamber of Commerce, I remember it was actually our 50-year anniversary for Bill Gollan car sales, and it was the very first year that Deagon Race Day was about.
Mm-hmm.
And as I just said, good segue, Nick. My grandfather was a racehorse trainer, and I thought, what a great way to integrate my grandfather, my father, and our family business, being 50 years in business. That we sponsored a race at the inaugural Deagon Picnic Race Day, and we did. Yeah. And it was quite amazing. And I remember going to the morning of the draw, and the Chamber of Commerce was running the event, and you draw whichever race you sponsor on the day. And I won't say what we cost, but it wasn't. Yeah, it was reasonable money, but it wasn't stupid money. But I thought I was giving back to the business community, yeah. And I remember the then people in charge of the organisation said, "Oh, that's great money. This money now will go back into the community." And I went, "What do you mean, go back into the community?" And they said, "Oh, yeah, it goes back into the community programs and that sort of stuff." I said, "No, aren't you this is the Chamber of Commerce. Shouldn't it be going back into supporting local businesses and what we can do to make local businesses' lives better?" And they said no. And I walked away from that going, "Oh, it's a bit bizarre." And speeding forward a few months, a couple of local people came to me and said, "Look, we need to start up an organisation in the area that is representative of the businesses." And I said, well, you've already got a Chamber of Commerce. And they said, "No, the Chamber of Commerce is not working for us. It's sort of a little bit political, and it just it's sort of like fallen beside the wayside, and it's not representative of the community." I said, "Oh, look, I'm not going there. I'm not picking fights with people, believe it or not. And you know me well, Nick. I love a fight, but I didn't want to go."
It's not Friday night, mate. So yeah, not.
Yeah. Well, not physical fights, but I love a verbal fight. And I said, "Well, look, instead of starting up a new Chamber of Commerce, we've already got the machine. It's already got the wheels. Let's build the race car." And so what happened is myself and a group of other people said, "Look, let's get the Chamber of Commerce reinvigorated, lifestyle, get it going for the area." The businesses weren't being represented, and that's the bottom line. And I'm sorry, and we just said before, it wasn't happening. I think there was about 5 or 6 members of the Chamber of Commerce at the time, and people like myself tried to join. Weren't able to join, so we literally put money in bank accounts and joined, and under the Constitution, and we ran an AGM, and 2 days later, that's another story for another time, but I was elected Chamber of Commerce president. That's 10 years ago this year, Nick.
What year was that? 2000?
10 years ago, 2016. Okay. And I actually said, "Look, I'm only going to do this for 3 years." It's back when I had hair. Look, seriously, I had hair. Look, go back and look at the photos, and I was much better looking. But I think I'm actually the most.
No, that's just from your missus rubbing your hands through your hair so much.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. But I still say to my wife, I'm still the most handsome Chamber of Commerce president in Australia. Exactly. There's no argument about that. Put the lights up, everyone.
Oh, she tells it to me all the time. The other night, at full moon, she said, "I'm here with the most handsome Chamber of Commerce president in Australia." And I said, "Yeah, I know that."
It goes without saying, it goes without saying. So look, what happened was we reinvented it, and I say my biggest job in the Chamber of Commerce is to balance egos. I mean, we have this group of people that all run businesses and small businesses and employ people, and literally every day of the week they write checks, metaphorically this day, I suppose, that depend on where they send their kids to school or put food on the table. And I think people sometimes have a crack at small business or businesses, think they're these big greedy people, but literally nearly all small businesses in this area rely on the people that support them, which is the local community.
So mate, before we get to the Sandgate specific,
sorry.
A lot of people don't really know what a Chamber of Commerce does. And I know there's a statewide body where the chambers are all part of and everything else. Yeah. And I, from someone who's totally ignorant, I do know from outside of looking into my music community, we've got a few organisations that are supposed to represent us, but they end up being platforms for really the people who get on boards and whatever else to leverage their opportunities and businesses and all that. What is the purpose, statewide, of Chamber of Commerce, and is there a centralised body and rules you have to follow? Is it a free for all? What's the Chamber of Commerce about?
So look, let's start at the senior level in Queensland. There is a Queensland Chamber of Commerce, Queensland Business Chamber of Commerce Queensland. It's called now. It's been gone through everything. It is an overarching body. It is not compulsory for any Chamber of Commerce in Queensland to be a member of.
Does it come under a government body, or is it?
No. It's a what would you call it? Like a loose union of Chamber of Commerces and businesses through Queensland. The Queensland Chamber of Commerce actually encourages people to join as businesses to them directly. They're a good body. They're a great resource for people who are involved in small business. They have great ways to tap into workplace health and safety issues, ways to grow your business, a really, really great way to tap into a knowledge database, how to start a small business, how to run a small business, how to look after a small business. So they're very good at that, and they're extremely good at lobbying government for the benefit of small business.
Does the government support the organisation? Is it like, does it get help from the government, or is it?
Oh, look, you get some funding from the state government, but it is, from my perspective,
independent
of the state government. Yeah. For the first few years, I was Chamber of Commerce president in the chamber that I currently run. We actually weren't members of it. We thought, well, look, we need to be independent, but it's really important to be part of that body. There's only so much, and this is really important. The Chamber of Commerce in Sandgate, the Sandgate Bayside Chamber of Commerce, is the people who sit on there are all volunteers. Okay, yeah. So we literally give our time. We're not paid to do the job. For some of the things that happen to us, we probably should be paid a truckload of money, but we don't. We do it for the love of the community, love of businesses, and I think that's the thing with the Sandgate Chamber of Commerce. We're actually, that differs us from a lot of Chamber of Commerces in Queensland is that a lot of them are about networking and that sort of stuff. But because we're such a close networking community, we're already doing the networking. Sorry, sorry.
I hadn't turned my phone on silent. Sorry.
Right. Okay. All good. Yeah. So we're literally our own small country town, and so everyone knows everyone. There are new businesses that come on board. So we do a small part of networking. It is, but I see our role, the Chamber of Commerce in the Sandgate Bayside, is promoting the Sandgate Bayside and supporting small business. So we attract more small businesses and people working in small business to our area. If we go back to the old motor dealer analogy, we're the local pit crew that keeps the wheels on small business.
Yep. Yeah. Mate, for me, obviously you're someone who grew up in the area. So I think we've covered Chamber of Commerce there and what they do pretty well. But when we look at Sandgate specifically, or 4017, not just Sandgate, postcode of 4017, I was a little bit of an outsider insofar as I grew up around the Grange. I went to like Kedron High School, Wilston Primary School, and Sandgate and Boondall were always just that bit on the edge. And to be honest with you, going through like high school and in the 70s, there was all this talk about the Sandgate boys and the Boondall boys, and it was a real rough area to sort of go to and everything else. And we just didn't go out there. And then about 15... Was that true, by the way? Were there different gangs out there in those days? Or?
Oh, mate, the Sandgate boys, mate, we were tough. Like, seriously, man. You know me, Nick, I'm about 5'0" and...
I drink with them. I drink with them all the time now. So you were one of the Sandgate boys?
Oh, mate, but in saying that, so look, going back to my father's days, the Sandgate boys is a thing. It's a community, and as an extension of that community, there's this vibe that if you come from Sandgate, or if you're born and raised in Sandgate, or if you raise a family here, you become a part of Sandgate, and sometimes it sounds a bit snobby. It's not, and it's not meant to be.
Well, that goes back to my story, mate. When about 16, 17 years ago, we moved out to Sandgate. We rented first in 7th Avenue. And when we were first going out there, and we lived in lots of other places around the place, and I was a bit nervous about going out there. I thought, well, is this like kind of a rough area? Is it going to be like what's it going to be like? And when we moved there, I fell in love with the place straight away for starters. Yes, there's challenges there. There's issues with so there's it's like what. Well, I'll go back a little bit. We moved there. We end up buying a house then in Deagon, between like the Sandgate railway station and Deagon railway station, and that little road that goes across the Deagon railway station there. When we first drove through there, I thought, is this a safe area to come into? I didn't know it was, and I was just so naive. And it was just like the most wonderful place to live. A most wonderful little area to live in. And we discovered that it was this community that, like on Anzac Day, everyone would walk down to the main little park at Sandgate and join in at the Anzac Day parade. Now, our kids, 3 of our kids went to Shorncliffe State School, and they were in the area, and they grew up in the area. And it was like everyone knew each other, and it was such a kind of village community. But you could see the change. You could see the change that was going through there. Obviously, there's obviously an element that was in the area that it had rough parts, but slowly it was becoming more and more houses being renovated and people moving in and becoming just this wonderful place for families to be. And I always thought then, why did I think you couldn't come out to Sandgate? Because it's just so brilliant. And is that a description what I've said from the outside? Have you come across that from anyone else at all? Or?
So Nick, sometimes it's amazing that people with fresh eyes give you a perspective on an area. So growing up in the area, you're 100% correct. It was known as a bit rough. I mean, there was a lot of ex-wharfies who lived in the area, and a little bit of people from parts of the world. Yeah, but there was also
any edge of city community.
Yeah, and that was back in the days when those sort of parts of the industry in the world had that sort of bit of like cast of a shade over them. But also there were some very, very wealthy, educated people in the area, and going back to what I was just talking about, a former local member, Sterling Hinchcliffe, opened my eyes to it one day, and he said, Bill, he said, what I love about Sandgate, he said, you've got these people that are wealthy, they're educated, that they're very big people in the industry, living and working and spending their lives with people at the complete other end of this spectrum, but no one judges anyone. Yeah. And I think that is the essence of what the Sandgate Bayside is about. And I actually never really thought about, I knew it in my heart, but it actually was never articulated to me. So he actually, always give him credit for that it actually enunciated what that looked like. And
maybe you go back to the 1880s, and that was like when the townships sort of came together, and I think the railway line went through like 1882 or something. And it used to be like the Gold Coast to go to, wasn't it? From people from Brisbane who go to Sandgate.
So Nick, look, people talk about the character of Sandgate. We've got these people who've moved here in the last 10 years or so. They talk about Sandgate's character and its heritage and And I'm sorry that sometimes it really annoys me. But that's great. Everyone's allowed to an opinion. Everyone should respect everyone's opinion. And we need more of that. And that's the Sandgate that I actually grew up in. Everyone did, going back to what I just said, respected everyone's opinion, regardless of what it was. There was some of the people from extreme left wings of politics and some of the people from the extreme right wings of politics.
You had Tosser Turner living up on the hill, didn't you?
Yeah, and Tosser. I mean, they lived all next to each other. They had a beer with each other. They didn't give a damn about where you came from or what school you went to.
Mate, you still see that reflected today up at the Full Moon where I play a lot.
Yeah.
And it's such a trendy, great area. And on Saturday nights at the Full Moon, later in the night, you're getting a really young crowd. And they've decided to come to a great venue like the Full Moon rather than going to the Valley because it's so much more friendly and a great atmosphere for them to be in than that city vibe.
Yeah, it is, mate. And look, going back to what you said, that's where Sandgate came from. If you go back in the very early colonial days, Sandgate was settled, and it was a settlers area on the north of the Brisbane colony. Sorry, big with Tom and I.
Because it wasn't a convict place, was it? Place?
No, it wasn't.
That was
It
wasn't.
It was like the stopover point between Redcliffe and Brisbane, because I don't know if you know, but Redcliffe itself was the original colony and the original settlement of Brisbane. Then the settlers moved into Brisbane because there was more sources of water. And out here was a far-flung area, and it literally, if you read the history of the area, that it literally used to take a day to come out to Sandgate in a wagon, like from Brisbane.
But mate, from Redcliffe, where they had the penal settlement, and obviously you had civilization starting to develop at Sandgate, they just used boats to get across from Brisbane to.
Yeah, well, I'll get to that. That's a little bit further down the track, Nick. But we'll get there. We'll get that. So, interestingly, is we moved on, okay? But going back in the late 1800s, the area was great. It was the holiday destination for Brisbane.
Is the Gold Coast?
Yeah. The Gold Coast wasn't even thought of. The Sunshine Coast, no one knew existed. Like as I just said, it took a day to get here in a wagon. So it would have taken you a week to get to the sunshine of the Gold Coast. And then, this probably sums up Sandgate. We built a pier to attract people to go to a pub. like the Shorncliffe Pier was built from the guy who owned the Seaview Hotel to attract people to go to his pub from Brisbane. So,
and it was called the Seaview from day one, was it?
Yeah, and people came here by boat. It's pretty amazing. How Sandgate is that? Like, seriously. But look, but we'll fast forward a little bit. Back in the pre-war and post-war War II, Sandgate was the party destination, or the seaside village destination of the area. I mean, St. Pat's College was the former Queensland Governor's summer home, like a summer home. Who even thinks about that this day and age? So the main building there is the former Queensland State Government summer home. So it was bustling. And if you look back at the history of the area, we had multiple movie theatres, which was a big thing in those days. We had multiple pubs. Like we had the Seaview, we had the Musgrave, we had the Fulham, as it was used to be called, the Osborne. We had the Brighton Hotel. There was another pub down down the beachfront. There were multiple shopping centres. And when you move forward to the 50s and the 60s, we had everything. You didn't have to leave the area. We had shoe shops, we had fashion shops, we had electrical stores, we had everything. You didn't have to leave it. And that was all built on a tourism push. That's what the economy was based around. And unfortunately, the world evolves, and we all need to change with the world. Going back, to the 60s, roads were built to the Sunshine Coast and the Gold Coast. So what used to take a day to travel turned into literally a day trip, and our area lost a lot of its sparkle because of that. And
hey, quick commercial break. Big shout out to our sponsor for today's episode, which is me, Nick Phillips. Look, I've got to thank myself so much. I couldn't be doing the show without me. And if you get a chance, check out the sponsor's website, www.nickphillips.com. Check out my music, my videos, my bio, all that stuff, and maybe contact me and book me for a gig. That would be great. But thanks, Nick, for your sponsorship. Back to the show. So, mate, one of the things I think, from gathering what you're saying is that, it was a boom town pretty much before you had access to the sunny coast and the Gold Coast so much. And it's been a bit tougher since people really stopped coming out for the tourism destination. But one thing that hasn't changed is the character of the place.
No.
From someone who's living there, what I see, what you're doing through the chamber, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the events you guys are putting on is really trying to attract people to come out and rediscover that character that 4017 has. Is that a fair enough statement?
Yeah, look, Nick, just to sort of time what I was talking about before, when the tourism dollar disappeared and waned back from in the 60s, we also lost a lot of accommodation. So there was a lot of short-term accommodation in this area. So people come and stay in the area, and spend money at the pub, and if you had a wedding or a party and that, you could stay somewhere. That's disappeared. We don't have that anymore in our area, and that's the amount of dollars that come outside of our area and people that we haven't function here go and live in other parts of the area in short-term accommodation is terrible. It's bad for our economy. So yeah, look.
On that point, there's the venue I play at a lot there, and I won't overplug them because I know there's other venues that should be plugged as well. But
that's a great venue.
I get people from out Ipswich way saying they love coming out seeing me play there because they love the environment, the whole area, but they can't stay anywhere. Do you see that changing with the accommodation locally? What's happening?
Well, it needs to change, Nick, because we're losing so much money out of the area. Remember, not long after I became the Chamber of Commerce president, we had a festival called Day on the Bay up at Decker Park, just on the northern edge on the bay there, where we had some of the great acts over their time and Australian acts over the day there. And the scary part is none of those acts could stay in our area. They had to move. They came from interstate and stayed here, but they couldn't stay here. They had to go and stay at Redcliffe on the night. Remember, Darryl Braithwaite famously said, "How you going, Redcliffe?" Because he was staying at Redcliffe that night. And like that was just that's poor. Yeah, and it still rings true this day and age. But look, the area has the ability to rechannel in, and I think the world's changed a hell of a lot. We went through this big globalization and traveling thing. Now we've got some really great advantages. Try driving to the Gold Coast. Try driving the Sunshine Coast and back on a weekend now. It's a battle through traffic. So jump on the train or drive down to Sandgate or up to Sandgate. I used to call it Sandgate because we are north. We're north. Brisbane's most northern suburb. Come and spend the day here. Like people are going, wow. Why do we keep driving past this place? It's still great. It's got beautiful views of Moreton Bay. I mean, I hear of Wynnum and those sort of suburbs being called the Bayside suburbs. Go down there. It's not that much of a Bayside to look at. We've got the best Bayside to look at, 100%.
Absolutely, mate. Bramble Bay. It's like your best position to enjoy it all from the Sandgate.
We'll get back to the festival. Sorry, I was digressing.
No, that's all right. No, we got heaps of time to go through everything, and I think that history and the social, even the character. We talk about the character of Sandgate, mate. I did a thing a couple of weeks ago at Sandbag, the little community centre there in Sandgate for the arts community. They had an arts tour going on over 2 weekends where people could go and see all the local artists. And one of the things, Sandgate's a little bit like the Karoi Noosa area insofar as there's a lot of musicians and artists who are in the area. And it adds to the character of everything. And it was great. I got to play at their opening event and just see what the artists were doing. And while it's close to the city and it's kind of, it is getting a bit up market. Like, you look at the Renaults going around Brighton and everything else. There's a lot of money coming in the area for the places, but it is staying very also cultural as far as artsy cultural.
Yes,
and that it keeps that village atmosphere. And I know as my kids are all grown now, but raising kids in an area like that is just so enriching. And I don't know of an area around Brisbane that has that same value.
No, and look, either do I, but mind you, we are biased. You know that. We are.
No, but seriously, you think of it. You've got certain areas in the city that have artistic things, but they're not beside the bay. They haven't got the water there. We've got the water there, access to Moreton Island and everything else, and we've got great family community and the artistic thing going on. It is pretty unique, mate.
It's really cool. We run a couple of things as a Chamber of Commerce with the local arts community, like obviously the Blue Water Festival. There's a big art show the night before.
Mate, run through the events you do, because I know you put a lot of effort into it, and I think people should know about the events that you put your time and effort into.
Events. Can I go back two steps or one step? Why do we run events in Sandgate?
Hey?
Why do we run events? Do you know why we run events in Sandgate?
Well, I do, but you tell the people.
Oh, okay, right, okay. So look, when I first became the Chamber of Commerce president, where the big event, obviously and still is the Blue Water Festival, which has been going for over 50 years. I think next year's the 50th year, which celebrates the start of the Brisbane Gladstone Yacht Race. It's held on Good Friday. To run that event, it is run by volunteers with the support of sponsors, including the Brisbane City Council. but it is the largest sporting event in the country on Good Friday. And people forget
not sporting arts event, mate.
Yeah. Well, sporting. Sorry, as far as people.
Oh, sorry. You mean the boats out in the water?
Yeah. So the event was, when we took over, was a little bit. It was a bit dated, and it probably, some people may argue now it's a little bit dated. But we actually realised that people just don't want to go down there for the day and just look at arts and crafts, and there's nothing wrong with it because that's a massive part of the event. But people want to sit there for the day and be entertained, and that's when we got people like yourself involved and said, look, let's go there for the day, watch the boat race, listen to some music, eat some great food, look at some great art, buy some money, buy some stuff from the stalls, and be entertained and just have a great day. And I always think the Blue Water Festival is the great back to Sandgate weekend. You go down there and you meet people that you haven't seen for all year. And
I will go a step further, and I would say the Blue Water Festival on Good Friday, where nothing else is happening, I think it's the greatest Queensland festival that happens.
Wow.
What happens is you stand on the pier and you watch the start of the Brisbane to Gladstone yacht race, which you can see it. The cannon goes off from the pier. That's a great start to the day.
Yeah.
You get 10,000 odd people there during the day.
We do.
During the rides, they're eating food. There's a stage there where there's music from like 10 in the morning till, 9 o'clock at night?
7:30 at night, yeah.
You got the fireworks display goes off, and it's all around the water. It's all a family atmosphere on a day where there's nothing else happening. And I really do believe that the Blue Water Festival is Queensland's greatest festival.
Well, Nick, you touched on it. I actually believe, and I might be a little bit biased, that the Blue Water Festival is definitely Queensland's greatest family community festival.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of festivals, but you hit the nail on the head. People from all ages come there on that day, and it's really cool. Very proud of it.
Queensland Festival, mate. Queensland is built on families. And that family environment, getting out in the sun, having a great time, that's who we are. And I'm talking from an artist I've played at many festivals, but I just know, and mate, some of the times I've played at Blue Water Festival, we got hit by mini cyclones, and
remember that day we had fans going trying to blow the amplifiers.
I was the only one left on stage doing songs, mate, with a makeshift.
But the cool part, you were doing it, but there was still probably 4,000 or 5,000 people there sitting watching the pouring rain. How cool was that?
Yeah. Absolutely. But
our other festivals, so Jingle All the Bay.
Yep.
There's a story with Jingle All the Bay. When I first became Chamber of Commerce president,
I know Santa called you and said we need to do something cool, so I'm going to call you.
Oh yeah, look, mate, I've got a personal line to Santa. You should know that. Yeah. So, like seriously, I mean, I've not long become the Chamber of Commerce president, and it was called Christmas in Sandgate. And I said, what's going on with that? And people said, oh, we do this, we do that. And I said, look, just get on. I just want to get my feet under the table, do what you're doing, don't stop. And Christmas in Sandgate, we were getting a sum of money from the Brisbane City Council, and I remember going down there and the night was on, and there was lighting up a Christmas tree, and there was a few lights in a tree at Ironbumper Lagoon, and I remember telling my wife, come down, and at the time I've got 4 sons, as you know, they were all little, and I'm going to come down and we'll meet Santa and light the Christmas tree up, and they all come down, they were excited, and my wife goes, where's the lights in the Christmas tree? I said, that's them above us. And then I think we had more lights in our Christmas tree at home. And then there was a few stalls and that. And at the time the mayor was coming down, and I'm going to tell this guy. I mean, so there wasn't anything that supported local businesses, all right, that I saw anyway. I mean, I could be corrected by the people who ran it, and they did an admirable job. But we sat down, and we refreshed it a couple of months later. We come up with an idea, and we changed it to Jingle All the Bay. And Jingle All the Bay, literally the first year, went from a couple of avenues with a street parade in the main street of Sandgate to now the street parade goes through the whole of Sandgate. We get 12,000 people down there on the night. We have stall holders, and we have food trucks and that sort of stuff. But the most important thing is the businesses that are open, who didn't open for the first 2 or 3 years we ran the event, now are opening and making money.
No, that's a really important point to highlight, Bill, is that obviously, as me as an entertainer, the general public, you go there for a good time. But you, as a president for the Chamber of Commerce, when you pull it back to the basics, you're there to help local businesses be profitable.
Yeah, that's our job, and we are unashamedly.
Yeah,
that's our role.
Yeah,
that is our role, and whether it's short term or long term thinking, it's about generating money for small businesses that puts food on the table, that pays for their kids to go to school, and gives kids jobs. People forget about that.
And also, when people spend money in our community, that money gets spent back into our community. So
everyone forgets that. Everyone forgets that, and from a local point of view, and I was just touched on before, I got 4 sons, and would you rather have your sons work on the other side of town, or would you have them work in the local community? And and as a community, that's one really good thing is they can walk into a certain business in a certain place, and they know that you're of the family of the kid that they're employing, and that's a great advantage for not just my kids, but for any other kid in this area. If they're a local, they do get a leg up, and so we make bigger. Sorry.
For people that obviously. The reason for the event is to advertise the region, let people know what's happening in the region. And I think one of the important things as someone who's raised a family in the region is it's one of the safest places to have your kids go to events to. It's like
it's incredible. Cool.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I did digress about the events, Nick. So why do we run events? Okay. So we had trouble for a period of time. And one of the greatest challenges is getting people to our area. We spoke about that before, about the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast. And what do you do? People have sort of forgotten Sandgate since the 50s and 60s, except for us locals. It was our little jewel in the crown. But, the businesses weren't growing because there wasn't enough people here. So what do we do to attract people here? We can literally bus them down, make the trains all come to Shorncliffe. That's not going to happen. So we said, let's crank these events up. And our theory is, and I spoke to a former mayor of Redcliffe many years ago, and that's what he did. He said, let's have these events. If you get 10,000 people to an event, or 500 people to an event, as in the long table, which we run every year, and only 10 of those people say, hey, I haven't been to Sandgate before. How good is this joint? We'll come back here next week. They bring their family, they bring their friends and that sort of stuff. And all of a sudden, over a period of time, those 10 multiply into 20 to 50, 100, and 1,000. And that's what happens. It's about promoting the area. Those events, it's amazing. Like things like the long table. The last one we ran, we had people coming from New Zealand to it. It was pretty cool.
Just for people who don't know, the long table event, you've got one of the best piers in anywhere in the world at Shorncliffe, and the long table event is where the tables go out along the pier. Very beautiful dinners put together, entertainment's involved, and it's just a great night. But all these events you do, I don't mean to take you off subject here, but obviously about bringing people to the region. But I imagine it's also about creating attraction for investment into the region. When you look at that, does the chamber have like a plan they're looking at on how they actually build that, or is it just haphazard, or do you have a plan you're moving forward with?
It's our greatest challenge, Nick. The areas what we spoke about before is the tourism dollar that disappeared, and yes, it is now a day tourism dollar, and it's very valuable. But I think we can do a lot better than we are. We also had that.
I've heard you talk about the precinct plan. What does that involve?
So just before I speak about that, so not only did we lose the tourism dollar, but going back 15 years ago, we had 6 of the major banks in the country in their main street of Sandgate, which created a lot of foot traffic in the area. The other thing we don't have in the area, and if you think about it, and I'm of the age that now, and a few of my friends are, is I live in a fairly large house with four sons. But if we want to keep living in our area, and we want to downsize when their kids leave the nest, as the old saying goes, we've got nowhere to go. There literally is nowhere that you can downsize, almost nowhere. that you can downsize in this area. And the best example is my sister. She's not much younger than me. She raised her kids, raised a family, lived and worked in this area. Her third generation in the area, obviously, such as myself. And she didn't want to live in a 4-bedroom house anymore. So she said she wanted to go and live in something nice, still live in the area. Where did she end up buying? She ended up buying at Redcliffe because there's a nice unit overlooking the water and walking to the pub, shops, and so we're losing that.
So basically, it's one thing to have people coming in and renovating houses and bringing families into Brighton or other places, but then where do the people go who are selling those places and that without going outside the area? Is that fair to say? What I'm saying is, one of the things that need to develop are those smaller living conditions where people can stay in the area but work for husband and wife, or even people who separate, the single people to have more single living conditions. Is that correct?
Correct, Nick. But the vital cog of that is, and there's an old lady I know who lives up at Shorncliffe in a beautiful big 5-bedroom old Queensland, multi-million-dollar house. She lives there by herself, right? And quite often she says to me, Bill, when do we get some nice units in Sandgate so I can move into? I don't want to look after this big house anymore. I don't want to live in it. But I love where I live. I love the views. I love the area. I love what the culture of the area. I love what the vibe of Sandgate. And I said, well, we don't have that. We don't have that ability. She says, well, what will happen when I sell? A young family with kids will move into my house. So we have this regeneration of people coming through our area, which we currently don't have at the moment. Nick, over the last 5 years, do you know how many you talk about money being spent in Sandgate? Do you know how many new houses have been, or new dwellings have been built in Sandgate?
No, I know there's been a lot of renovations, but new places, no, I don't.
In 5 years, we've only had 18 new dwellings.
Wow.
Like, seriously. And people talk about protecting it and keeping, the massive inflow of new people to the area. Well, I think, we're well and truly below that bar. But we'll go back to the what you were saying. The ability to downsize is gone. The precinct plan. The precinct plan has come about. We had, as you know, we had a few years ago, we had a neighbourhood plan for the Deagon Ward, which encompassed the whole entire Deagon Ward. And unfortunately, that didn't get up through various political reasons on all sides of the fence. There was people who exploited that for their own, on all sides of the fence, for their own political goodwill.
And it's important to say, I think I've seen it clearly too from you at Chamber of Commerce. It's certainly about progress, not about politics. And you work with all sides, right?
Nick, it's about progress, but you know what it's about? I mean, and I hear people, and I think it was one of the first things we spoke about this evening, is people talk about Sandgate's character. And some people have hijacked what Sandgate's character is. Okay. It's about old buildings. Well, you know what? What's Sandgate's character about? And we spoke about it a few different times tonight. Sandgate's character is about its people. It's not about buildings.
Yeah.
And if you can protect that, everything else is second rate, isn't it?
Yep.
So that really
is that core of the precinct plan? Is that core?
So the precinct plan, we've been working on Brisbane City Council, and we're going to be hearing more about it in the near future. Has rejigged it. The neighbourhood plan didn't work because it was too widespread and too shotgun and too political. The precinct plan, we've been working with Brisbane City Council, and this program was probably going to be the first time you're going to hear about this publicly, I suppose. So there you go, Nick. You got an exclusive at this stage. The precinct plan will deal with the main street of Sandgate, basically from the railway station up to 6th Avenue, and it's about generating the ability to drive investment and income into our businesses. At the moment, as you know, the businesses in our area are living hand to mouth. And I hear people, let's protect our village. Well, they're going to kill it with kindness, because there ain't enough people coming and spending money in our area. Every business in the area, walk down the main street tomorrow and ask them, how many people are you getting in your shop? They'll tell you it's not enough. All right. Yeah. And people talk about rents. Well, rents are only applicable to what the money is made out of the shops. All right. And landlords don't like to have vacant properties most of the time, nearly all the time. So what we need with the precinct plan? The first thing we need to do is we need to protect our community character. All right. The second thing we need to do is we need to generate the ability, and what the Chamber of Commerce is about, to drive the economic engine of our community. And we go back to it, talking about our character. Our character is derived from a tourism town. Now, we're not going to be the Gold Coast, and we're not going to be the Sunshine Coast. We're never going to be that. But we've got the ability to be a niche market where people come for the day or the weekend, come to weddings, spend the time here for the weekend, and invest money in our community. The other thing it does is short-term accommodation. Nick, you're a musician. How many weddings and 50th birthday parties have you been to in our area lately?
Oh, I'm doing one this coming weekend. And
okay, you're making me.
It is an issue that people can't stay in there. They've got to stay.
You can't stay in the area. If you have an event, we're talking about events. You have a party, and your friends come from interstate or anywhere outside our area, they can't stay here. So they go and stay at Redcliffe. They go and stay at other parts of Brisbane, and that's just silly. It's just crazy. I don't get it. That include that's the short-term accommodation, but the ability to downsize. There's a great demand for it, and we can address that, and that's what the Sandgate precinct plan, I believe, is working towards. We haven't announced what that plan is. It's early days, but let me stress, it's very early days, and until we have a look at it, and I haven't seen it, let's just be positive about it and work towards keeping the community bigger and better.
Well, buddy, I really appreciate this chat. And obviously, the 4017 is part of my spirit, and I love
Yes.
the. And it's been great to clarify a few things. And I guess you do the slogging on the ground. But if I can just summarize a little bit from what I've seen from tonight's chat, and tell me if I'm wrong on anything. One, as someone who's lived in the area, raised kids in the area, there is such a great community spirit. So it goes back to the days in the 1800s where it was a place to come to with your families to celebrate and everything else. Sure, it doesn't have the shiny, glossy thing of Gold Coast, but mate, I'm not into the Gold Coast. I would go to the Sunshine Coast before the Goldie. But as a place to live, I love being around the bay at in the 4017 area. So I think it's a great place to live to start with. And I think you're saying that. Secondly, it's important we keep that vibe about it. But there are things we need to look at changing if it's going to move forward. And a few of those things you've mentioned are development of short-term accommodation places, but also the downscaling of not just looking at how you've got one house that gets sold, someone else moves in, they renovate it, you've got the same number of people, nothing really changes. How do we get more accommodation there for people who move out of those houses and their kids aren't there anymore and they want to stay in the area, so they want to build more accommodation? So there's what you're saying is you've got the atmosphere of the place, the spirit of the place, the great environment. There's so many investment opportunities. But besides the investment opportunities, I grew up in the Grange area in Brisbane. I've lived like in Los Angeles. I've lived in outside of Ipswich. I've lived in Mango Hill. I've lived in all these different places. None of those places I've lived in as far as direct suburbs put on 4 or 5 major events that bring people to their region that 4017 does. So not only do you have the investment opportunities, you have an active community there that are putting on major events that are Queensland leading events that bring people to the region. Now we need investors to come in, work with the whole community to provide those facilities, build the events that are already in place and are working, and make it just the premier place in Australia for people to come to. Does that make sense?
100%.
Mate, and the other thing I'd like to add about the whole having lived in the area is it's not like you're trying to repair an area. You're not trying to fix up things that are wrong. Everything's right. It's just a matter of growing it. And as far as an investment opportunity, you don't want to go into a place where you've got to change everything. This is a place to grow everything, and it's ready to go. And the other thing is, mate, I can tell you this firsthand. If you want to go to somewhere that's the best place in Southeast Queensland to have a beer, get fish and chips, and sit by the water and enjoy your day, it's 4017. So, mate, I hope that you agree with that statement. And we're probably getting close to where we've covered most things. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to toss in, or we there?
Nick, I mean, look, seriously, I mean, you know, speaking from your industry, like at the moment, you don't have too many venues to play in Sandgate. There's not too many, but we have the ability, or the potential is a better way to put it, the potential to have live music here regularly during the week and on the weekends. And the Giddy Up Festival, which we never even touched on tonight, is something. It's grew out of a couple of beers. But how do we get people to Sandgate in the winter months? And the Get Up Festival, we've now only realised, and a good friend of ours, Nathan, made me realise it. It is Brisbane's only country music festival, and so we have a potential to grow that, get the country music acts, big country music acts, but also grow our local acts.
But also, too, mate, in saying there is opportunity already in the region. Like you've got as the Full Moon, which I play at regularly. You got the Cardigan Bar, you got Mr. Henderson's, you got the Services Club. There are venues, and I don't know if I've missed any out. I don't think is it Brighton doing entertainment at the moment. I don't think they are.
I don't think so, mate. They love pokies.
But there are venues there, and we've just got to do is get more. So the venues are there. We just got to get more bums on seats. And that's what we need to do to help those venues out. You're putting in the effort through the events you're putting on. We got to get artists coming through the region and just doing all that. And I know that the local community will stay local. When we put up the Full Moon, the locals come out and see us. And we can do that with other venues. We just got to get that vibe growing. So as I said before, it's not like we've got to fix anything in Sandgate or 4017. It's just now a matter of growing it. And I think that's so exciting. It's probably one of the most exciting regions in Queensland, I think.
So Nick, what's really important about, and this is the Sandgate I grew up in, and we touched on it a couple of times tonight, where people from one side of the fence live with people on the other side of the fence, and no one gave a damn about which side of the fence you came from. Now, with the advent of social media and that sort of stuff, we now see people trying to take sides and make sides and B-sides, and they're on the bloody wrong side, the whole lot of them. Get rid of that crap. And first time I swore tonight. I think I've been pretty good. And
is crap a swear word? I didn't think
that. Mate, I mean, we're talking about Sandgate High, the old Tegan grammar. The crap wasn't much for word at all.
I thought crap was just like the rubbish you throw on the ground. I'll throw that crap down there.
But respect everyone's opinion. Everyone's got an opinion, and respect it. You might agree with it, but just respect it. I think Sandgate doesn't need saving. This is the whole thing. It needs belief, it needs energy, and a little bit of hustle, which the Chamber of Commerce, I think, provides sometimes.
It does. So, people, I just want to let you know, if you're interested in knowing more about the region, Bill's the guy to talk to, and if you want to know that, how genuine he is, look over his right shoulder, you got a picture of Wally Lewis. Look over his left shoulder, you got the original State of Origin paraphernalia happening there. So you got a true Queenslander there, a boy who's grown up in the area, who's and I can tell you, he talks a little bit politically about the challenge of people being against you, whatever, but he puts so much heart and soul into everything that happens in that region. And he's been a big supporter of me, and he's been a big supporter of the music industry. So I appreciate what he does with all that. So please, I know this is a little podcast, but if you see what we're talking about and you're interested in what's going on in the region, talk to Bill and the Chamber of Commerce, because it's just about, it's there. It's ready to grow. It's ready to expand. And there's some, you try and do this type of thing up the sunny coast or Gold Coast, and, triple your probably the budgets you're looking at, whereas Sandgate and 4017 is ready to grow and ready to happen. And Billy, I want to thank you so much for this chat, brother.
Thank you, Nick. It's a great area. We should all work together. And I think I once said to a local politician, I don't give a rat's what side of the politic divide you are. If you're going to stand front and centre to support our community, I'll stand front and centre with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, mate. We'll leave it at that. Thank you very much. We'll catch up soon again, and I'll see you at the pub gig soon, and we'll have a beer together.
No doubt we'll be doing country roads.
Yeah, we do. Bill gets up on stage often and sings country roads with me, and it's so hard because he dominates my performance and makes me look really bad, but he does a great job.
Thanks, mate. Love your work.